Easy, people.
Me, but I was there. It was all kind. Me, but I was there. It was all kind hard to resist.
So, how did you do all of that then? Well, I'm back with another nice things to know. And this one I'm calling Return of the Mac. For any people out there who know that tune, I don't know. I don't know if I even like that tune. But anyway, I digress. So, I'm going to show you how I did all that. One of the great things about the Akai Force is the way that you can create tools inside the Akai Force using macros. For anybody who doesn't know what a macro is, the short version of it is it's a way that you can use one function to do several functions at one time. There's 5 different ways that you can use macros. Again, the way I'm explaining this is really simple, or trying to be really simplified about it, because macros in themselves could be, you could do easily 20, 30 tutorials alone just on different sections of it. I mean, it can really be as big as whatever. What I'm trying to show is something where you might get some ideas, and also show you how I did this, and it might give you ideas of, all right, well, I could use that to create that or to do this. So first thing you want to know is, how do you get to macros? How did I get this scene here? Actually, let me turn on this light. I didn't realize how dark it was there. That's a bit better. Right. How did I get to this point on here? Oh yeah, I also should say like and subscribe. If you like anything that I've done on here, like and subscribe, it helps. It all helps. So anyway, like I was saying, have I got macros on here? All right, cool. There you go. I'm talking about macros. So how did I get this section where I've got pad effects on here, I've got notes on here if I want to play them, and I've also got launch on here. And how I do that is the next step on from launch and note. For anybody who didn't know, launch and note gives you both the notes on the bottom and gives you launch on the top. But if you press knobs, launch and note at the same time, you now have the pad grid A of the pad grids, and you've got your notes there, and you've got the launch there. If you just wanted pad grids to themselves, I've got no idea why somebody would want that, but if you did, you can press shift and knobs, and that gives you all 4. So it gives you 64 things that you can use for macros. I think that's good, but for the most cases, you probably only want to need 16, because I mean, you've only got 2 hands. So anyway, let's get back to it. So the second reason why you probably want to use notes, launch, knobs and launch and note. These 3 buttons, I'm going to keep fouling this up. Like I said, I try not to do edits on my things so everybody sees it in real time and understands what's going on so that you can do it. Is if you set it up like this, you can quickly access the macros by just pressing edit pad. And if for anybody who didn't know, edit pad is a quick shortcut to anything in the drum program. It also works on key groups. It doesn't work on these things, on plugins. But as soon as you press edit pad anyway, just in case, I'm trying not to go off on tangents, but if you didn't know, the shortcut normally to editing a instrument is shift clip, but an even quicker shortcut is if you have a drum program on or a key group, if you press edit pad, you're automatically into the instrument edit. So when you if you want to change, so you're already in that, just in case anybody didn't know. So anyway, let's go back to what we're on about. If you press edit pad on the pad effect, you end up in pad grid. Another thing I should be saying is I'm assuming everybody who's watching this already has an Akai Force, because what I'm showing here is somewhat advanced in the Akai Force. So I'm just gonna make assumptions that people know things, because it's somewhat advanced. So you've got 5 different ways that you can create macros on here. The first one is knobs, which was the first one what was on here before any update. So if anybody's looking at older versions, that exists on anything later. I don't know how people watch my stuff, but you should watch some of the older stuff that I've done, because there's a lot of tips and tricks which still work now. So you've got knobs, and what that means is depending on what setup there is there, I can create a knob that can do an effect. So that's one thing. It can do more than one effect. It could do, I don't know, 128 effects. 128 functions is a better way of me saying it. You can make a knob do, I think, up to 128 different things by one knob. I don't know who's going to do that, but you can do that, right? And you've got 16 knobs to do that over, as they're laid out here, as you can see. Though that's one. You've got crossfader, which is ace in certain circumstances, I believe. And the crossfader can be used to set up and use to affect a function on a track or on several tracks. So basically, that's just another way you can set up macro, same kind of thing. You've got you've got 2 ways of that. You've got the A, and you've also got B, which is the other side. You can do it from that. So you could have an effect on this side fade into an effect on that side. Obviously, there'll be issues there depending on how you set it up, because obviously, if you affect, unless that middle's got 0 effect on somehow, you're going to have an effect blending into another effect. So you've got no neutral point. But again, if you're clever about it, you could create neutral points. Like I said, it gets pretty complex after that. So anyway, let me simplify again. So you've got that you can use as a macro. You've got the X and Y pads as macros that you can use, just the same as the touch pads. I don't use it, but you've got like 4 of those. And so you've got basically 8, because you can do it across the X-axis and the Y-axis. Then you've got pad grid, which is one of my favorites, where you can set up pads or a pad to do a function. So like at the moment, this pad here, I've set up so that creates harmony. So when I press that, it's going to harmonize the vocal pad what I've put here. So like I'll show this one. So that's, and then if I let go, it's back to that. So that's pad grid. And then you've got envelope follower, another one of my favorites. And what you can do is you can set up different envelopes, either sound envelopes or LFOs. There's so many different ways that you can set up envelope sources. And what that does is that sends a signal that controls another signal. That's the easiest way of explaining that. So I'm going to break down how I did all of the ones that I've got here. I'm going to try and do this as fast as I can. And I'm going to start with the first one, what I did, which is ace. And I think you should always keep this in mind whenever you're doing vocals, or not in vocals, whenever you're doing anything and you want to create really sharp gates. I'm going to assume, again, people understand like terms such as mixer and volumes and stuff like that, and gates and compressors. I'm just going to have to assume that, because otherwise I'm going to be having to explain what a gate is. So I'm on about a noise gate. So the first thing what I did, well, I've done several things, but one what I really like, is I got the where shall I do this from? I got this vocal in this drum pad,
Me, but I was deaf.
and this is out of a Trap Soul kit, which is from the MPC Beats. So if you've got the MPC Beats program, you should be able to export it to the Akai Force, and that's what I did. I exported one of the kits because I thought interesting. Well, I've exported loads of kits, and I just came across this one, quite cool. So anyway, the thing about this, so I'm going to go shift mixer. About this vocal is the vocal is it's got a lot of reverb on it. I always like whenever it's same with remixes, when people ask me to do a remix or do any music, I always say, yes, send the stems, but can you send it with no effects? Because if somebody sends a stem like vocals with reverb on, and then you try and put it against another tune, sometimes it can be really janky. So I wanted to try and get rid of that. So this is a vocal normally.
Me, but I was deaf. It was all kind hard to resist. Who living lie, yeah. Who living lie, yeah.
But what I've done is I've got a noise gate on here. So every time that she stops singing, I'm getting rid of the reverb. So I'm getting rid of the tail end. So it's now like this.
Me, but I was deaf. It was all kind hard to resist. Who living lie, yeah. Who living lie, yeah. They likes me, but I was.
So the reason why I did that is so that I can balance it now. I've got more control over the tail end, so I can make it set in the song and the track a little easier for me and for my ears and how I want to do it. And it's a great trick to use anyway. It's a great trick to use for if you've got sampled basses or you chop up a bass and you want the bass to be tough. It's a good trick to use a gate. Again, that could be a tutorial in itself, but as a guideline, as a guiding idea, that's something you can use it for. So you want to know, how did I do that? So what I did is, again, I'm going edit, and I'm going to the pads just to get into the macro scene. And what I use is an envelope follower. So the additional thing I should add and explain is on each one of these, apart from track, because track is different functions for each one. I mean, knobs is different functions for each one. I would say knobs, I don't think, I'm going to just say the ones I use and how I believe they're good is in this order. I think envelope follower's ace, but I'd say that's number 2. Pad grid is the best, because pad grid, you can create your little own machines by just putting things on pads. So I'd say that's number 1. I would say envelope follower and crossfader are probably equal. I used to think that it was envelope follower and then crossfader, but I'm starting to see how good crossfader can be, because you can use it for really hard automation where you can just use the rhythm and you can put something in automation and then just get rid of it. Now, getting back to what I wanted to say is, you can have several, up to 16 different crossfader functions. And what I mean by that is, you can have an effect on this one, what I have, and then I could set up something on crossfader 2, again, totally different effect. So now when I'm moving this, it's not having any effect. So, but crossfader 1, so you can have 16 of these in themselves. And you can have, like I said before, you can have 8 of these by tapping that. I wouldn't be interested in XY. Me, I think it's a leftover thing. I don't get XY anyway. There's just better ways of being able to do stuff. Anyway, and then you've got pad grid. You've got all the 4 banks of pad grid. So you've got 4 banks of, so you've got 64, as I explained before. And envelope follower, you've got 16 of envelope follower. So you've got 16 things that your envelope can follow. So the number 1 envelope, what I was talking about initially, is the noise gate. And what I've done is I've set the noise gate up to the gate threshold so that when the vocal comes in,
Me, but I was deaf. It was all kind hard to
it's only letting through the vocal when it gets to a certain level. When it gets to a certain level on this gate threshold, it's letting the vocal through. But I'm making the voice control their own level. So basically, what I'm saying is, if it gets below a certain level, the gate threshold goes up, and when the gate threshold goes up, the gate is basically closed. And then what I've said is on here, by doing parameter range, I've said between a certain amount of parameters, minus 12 and not. So basically, as soon as it hears a signal greater than minus 12 dB, then no, sorry, as soon as the signal drops below minus 12 dB, the gate goes on. Again, like I say, I'm assuming people understand all of this stuff, so that's what I've used for that. And as you can see, there's the threshold. So watch it. Quiet you. Let me solo that and turn off everything else. So that's more accurate than I could ever get it, because it's using the vocal signal of this lyric, this sample here, to control its own volume. So this is a really good technique for anybody who's doing vocals and wants to really have a really tight gate. And again, you could do this on drums and so many things you could do this on, where you could have, maybe you've got drums and you want them to have a big reverb sound, but you don't want the tail end. That's a way of doing it, so that basically when the snare goes bang, you just only have the reverb of that snare and then you don't have the tail. That's a brilliant way of doing it, and you can do that via the noise gate. So that's number one. The other thing what I've done actually, while we're on envelope followers, let me go back to envelope follower, is I've used the second envelope follower to control the hype cutoff. And what I've used is I've used an LFO sine wave, because there's one there. So from the LFO, and if you want to look at the sections, you've got all the different sections there. As I was saying, there's so many different control sources what you can use. And what I've said to myself is, I want this cutoff of this track here, which is a synth that I kind of created out of the hype. And I've used one of the macros, and now slowly over time, this is going up and down, just slowly, very slowly over time. This cutoff is going higher and lower. Also at the same time, the pumper is going higher and lower. So there's more that pumping effect that's coming in over time. And how I've done that, again, is using envelope followers. So my second envelope follower that I'm using is raising the cutoff, but it's only raising it to a certain range, and that's what I've said. I've said I want it to go from 30%, so it initially starts at 30%, and I want it to end at 41%. I think I want that to be 42. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. 41%. So now this sine wave is going to go. The highest that the sine wave is going is to 42%. The lowest in that sine wave is 30, and it's going really, really slowly. What would be great, and hopefully they're going to do it sooner or later, is if it could be syncable. You can work out the sync, because you can just do a calculator and you work out the hertz and what the hertz would be over BPM, like I say. So you can work out, but because that's already true, that means they could actually have created another button somewhere here or something, and it just say sync and then change sync. But anyway, that's what that's doing. So that's doing a sine wave. So as you can see, if I turn that sine wave up to faster, so if I had this on, because that's the cutoff going fast. But I just had it really, really slow and on free. So using shift to get the fine. So that's just over time. Then on envelope 3, I'm using the pump depth. So that pump effect, I'm just using the macro one because it was just easier to make that over time slowly raise up. For anybody who doesn't know how you add them, there's a couple of ways you can add things. Again, oh yeah, and I'm also using this as a ramp. So as opposed to using a sine wave where it's going high and lower, this is getting to a point and then it's just cutting off. So that's basically what the ramp's doing. Like I say, for anybody who's unsure how you could do that, there's a couple of ways, depending on, again, this depends on what you're using it to affect. Some things you can learn, you press learn, and then you just go and find the thing that you want to affect. But some things you actually have to go deep menu dive, so you have to actually go and find it. So that's envelope follower. Pad grid, what I've done on pad grid is I've done a couple of things here. I should have really copied a before and after, but I'll explain and hopefully you'll understand what's going on. These notes here, these button pads here are changing on this key group. I've got key group here. Actually, I'll take it back. It's not key group. What am I on about? It's not key group. It's just normal pad slice. So I've sliced up this baseline. And this baseline is just going like that. And what I've said is, I want this button here. Well, I created 3 buttons. This button's not necessary, but I'll make it. I'll use these 2 so I make it easier for you to understand, hopefully. What I've said is, I want this button here. When I press this button, I want it to move semitunes, 3 semitunes down. And I've said how much semitunes by here, the parameters range. So the parameter range I've set the maximum amount that this parameter is going to affect is -3. The minimum amount that this is going to affect is 0. So what I've basically said is, when I press this button, when I'm not pressing this button, it's going to be 0. It's just going to not do anything. That's the maximum amount it's going to do. When that button's not pressed down, is 0. When I press this button down, it's going to go to a maximum of -3. So what that means is, now if I play a sound, this sound, when I press this button here, it's changing key. So it's now move that sample down 3. So that's how I've basically created this bass line, is by playing the bass line, just all the notes how I wanted. So for example, I'll do it on this one. I'll just make one up now. I've got no idea what I'm going to play. So now I can make this change key. Another tip, that's a really good way. If you've got a guitar, say you've got one of these guitar chugs or something like that, you could actually use a guitar sample and change the key of the chug. And depending on how far that pitch is, I wouldn't use it on time stretch so much myself. I would just use it on small samples. At present, that might change in the future. But so that's that. And then, so I've got that -3 and I've got this at -2. And for any musical boffins on there, they'll know, yeah, if you move down to -3, then it'll be on the same scale, depending on what the scale was. And this is in a key of E, or is it? I can't remember. F sharp. So this is F sharp minor. So basically using the knowledge, or not even the knowledge, just a bit of common sense, I guess, or whatever. Your ears. If you use your ears, let's say you don't know music theory, use your ears, because that's what they're there for. I worked out, I said, oh yeah, that'll work as a drop down, and then 2 would drop down and it go back to there. And I can't remember, I think it's like a 3, so that would be like 5, I don't know, is it 1? So it's 1, 4, 3, I think. Don't quote me on that, anybody who knows music theory. But anyway, that's what I basically did for that. And then I did that for the bass, and I also did that for the plugin, because you can do that on anything. You can anything with transpose or fine or tune, you can do it on. So I could have, and I could have done that on just a single pad, but I didn't want to. I did that on this group because I just knew that I'd move the group by itself, because I didn't need to move anything else. So yeah, the same thing on that. So if I go, so let's say for example, I'll create something again. So now for the plugin, I've done the same thing. So let's play that. So when they press these buttons, they change key. So the first version would be how they would normally play. Actually, that sounded pretty cool there. Let's try it in. So I would probably want to double that, wouldn't I? So if that's double now. So the first one's playing normal, second one. That's cool. Yeah, cool. Anyway, I digress. That's quite interesting. So that's a good way for anybody who's not great with the keys or wants to come up with little ideas. That trick is really good for samples. If you've got bassline samples, if you're doing any solo R&B or anything really jazzy and complex, that's a quick way of getting something what would be pretty complicated to musically do easy, I believe anyway. Like I say, hopefully people understand what I mean by that. Like I said, I'll say it again, 2 things: like and subscribe if you enjoy this and you're not fast forwarding, you've got to this point. Second thing, this is quite advanced in a way, I believe, or maybe not. So anyway, that was those 2 things. Now, the other thing was the echoes. So how did I do the echoes? How am I doing? Well, this one is one of the easier ones to do. And how I did this, let me see, shall I start again? Do I want to start again? Is there anything that I need to... No, I'll do this. I'll show this. It's pretty easy, right? So I'll delete that. And all I need to do is, I wanted this signal here, this vocal. What I did, shift vocal, 6 mixer. I sent this vocal from the drum program that this is in, and I sent it out to sub 1. So now if I go to master and then I press this button, take me to the masters, but it took me a little too far. So I'm here. So this sample is coming to sub 1. And on sub 1, what I did is I loaded onto sub 1 one of the presets from the factory effects. I've been lobbying them, and I'm going to be doing some more lobbying of this to have more preset effects in this machine, because I think they've been pretty stingy with these factory racks. I assume that lots of people don't really know how to do like audio engineering and how to set up signal chains, because it's very complicated. It can be very complicated. So anyway, I digress. This one is easy because all you have to do is you go. I went down to performance and I chose one of the ones that they've already created. So I used repeat, stop, washout. So when I pressed repeat, stop, washout, blam, I've got all of these effects in here. I'll turn on the filter. Oh no, don't need to turn on the filter because it's automated. So I've loaded those effects up here. Normally they would show, but they're not showing. Why? Because they're on knobs. So I need to go to knobs, rack effects. So now I've got the knob rack effects. Why is it still not showing? Well, because I'm not on that, and I need to actually be on that one. So I need to actually be on that channel, because at the moment, as you can see, if you look down here, I'm on track 1. What I need to be in master, I need to be on sub 1. So now I've got all of these effects. So these effects are here on top of here. Oh, I need to play it, don't I? Right, so, oh, let me go back to here a sec. Oh no, do you know what I could have done? I keep forgetting this, because even though I'm used to it, if you press and hold, yeah, I would have, oh no, I still would have to go back to that, so it doesn't matter anyway. Press and hold. Let's play that.
Me, but I was tough. It was all kind of hard to resist. Ooh, living lie, yeah.
Right.
Ooh, living
So let me go back to 1.
me.
So these are on the knobs, yeah. And what's great about this is any information on knobs you can copy to pads. So if you ever need to copy anything or get information from knobs, all you have to do is press copy, choose the one you wanted, which I think was 16, that's it. So I'm using an 8th, and I'll plug it in there. So I've got that on an 8th. Oh, do you know what? I must have deleted the other one. I didn't even see that I did that. Let me go back to that. That's interesting. I didn't even notice. Huh. No. Yeah, I did. Oh, well. Yeah. So basically, now I've just copied that information to there. So. And always remember, the same thing is true with these pads. So you can copy and delete. So now I've got rid of that from there. I don't need it anymore. So I could get rid of it there, because I don't need it on there. I've got it on pads. I could copy this one as well. So I'll do the 16th. This is 16th, so I'm going to copy that there. So now I've got 16th. I can delete these. You don't have to do that. I just like keeping things in order. So now I've got both of these effects on here. So anything hard like that, use the presets. As I always say, use the presets. That's why I'm always preset king. Use the presets. You can always modify them after. Make your life easier. Remember what you're doing. You're making music. Right. So the last thing, what I did, well, no, there's one more thing on the pad grid I forgot. So how did I do the harmonizing? So let me go back here. How did I do the harmonizing? Well, the harmonizing, again, is on the pad. How's that working? Well, this is where it gets into routing. And again, another beautiful thing about the Akai Force, the way that you can route. So what I said is, on this shift mixer, did I do it on here? Yeah, I did. I said, I'm going to send a signal from the submixer. I could have sent it from the submixer in the drum program. I could have sent a submixer from I could have sent a submixer from the submix. But because of the way I wanted this FX chain to work, I wanted this to be like post fade, is the only way I can explain it. I didn't want it to have any other effects on it. Like I said, I hope you understand what I mean. So I sent from inside the drum program this signal out to something I wanted effects. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, you've got 4 auxiliary sends. That's how I look at these. These are auxiliary sends. That's what they are, not how I look at them. These auxiliary sends are sent to 4 master returns. So the 4 master returns, blam, are over here. 2 of the master returns already normally, if you've got a default new project, a reverb and delay. So what I said is I'm going to set up one being the vocal harmonizer. So now I'm sending that signal there to a vocal harmonizer, blam. And then all I basically said is I want to add those harmonies to there. And again, using Learn, you can just go in and I've learned them to switch off and on. turn down the lead volume on there, so only having the harmonies come through. And what's great about the way they've set this up is if you switch off the harmonies, this signal is also switched off, which is quite dope, meaning you're not going to get a feed through of another signal. Again, I'm not going to get into this because this is not about routing. I just wanted to tell that to anybody who's like, oh wow, that's crazy. That means I can do this, that, and the other, and you might not be aware of that. So you could actually use the harmonizer as a kind of harmonic gate. Anyway, that's another ball game. So that's what I set up for there. And then the final thing, what I did, let's get back to it. Edit, go to pad, is the crossfader. And with a crossfader, it was just a simple one. So if I, where am I? Oh, there it is. Wash out. Oh, I must have deleted some. Oh, I know why. Do you know why these are gone? I remember why. If you load up anything and you change it, you're getting rid of the settings what are there. So keep that in mind. So a question somebody might be wondering is, well, what if I have a good setup? How can I save it? And you can save it. You'd save it as a track, but you've got to remember that track's not going to work if it's got other additional routing outside of that track. Like I said, this is advanced, so I'm explaining that, and I'm hoping anybody who knows about how you would do audio routing would do that. If you don't know about any of that stuff, this is way too advanced for you. Maybe rewind it, start off easy or something like that. If you understand about audio routing and that, then you kind of understand what I've just said there is the tracks are by themselves. So if you did something, if you wanted to do any complex routing and you weren't quite sure what you were doing, just start off with a drum program. See how you would route signals from a drum program, and then you'll start to understand how, if you want to save something, if you want to save a setup and it's doing anything external or anything like that, and you say, for example, say I've got this great washout fader here and I'm like, oh, this is ace. I wouldn't mind this on every tuner. I don't want to have to set it up for every project. Then what you would do is you would save that as a track, but you would have to make sure that track is set up so that the signals are going in the same way, i.e. that if you saved that and you saved the submix track, you'll have to load the submix track in first, then you'd load this track in so that it knows that when it's sending that signal, it's going to be sending it to that submix track, what has the exact same setup as on that track. Hell knows how more easy I could explain that. I hope that made sense to you. When you do certain functions, if they're complex, it's not necessarily copy, because if I copied that, it wouldn't be copying all the functions, it'd be copying the function of that touch. So for example, back to this rack effects, back to this here, the master. Let's get back to the master. We'll go all the way across down here till we get to there. We'll go to 1, and that'll be there. So what I forgot to, what I'd basically done then was I was learning just the touch enable. So it wasn't anything else that I was doing wrong. I was learning touch enable. What I need to do is I need to learn the whole of the macro because it's more than one function. So if I touched that, if I was copying that to there, that would work, because that would be like, it'd be a bunch of macros underneath there. Don't ask me, I didn't make this machine. It's just the easiest way of me explaining that. What you have to do for something where it's multiple macros, which that washout effect is, let me stop doing learn. This is multiple macros. So it's multiple macros. What you need to do is you need to add the multiple macros, because I want to copy them multiple macros. So all I need to do is copy the existing macros. So I'm copying the existing information here. I'm going to replace it. Well, I was on 2 there. I've done it to 2. It doesn't really matter, right? So I'm going to replace this information. And the information what I'm going to be replacing on this crossfader is the information from the knobs. So what knob it's a track effects, rack effect thing that I want to do. And what one is it that I want to do? I want to do washout. So now I've just copied all that information to there, and that's why that didn't work. And the only thing where I was right is at the moment, if you hear this, it don't keep on. And the reason why is because I have got that on momentary. So now so I hope that 45 minutes has been helpful to you. Rewind, pause, everything that you want, that you need to see what you need in this macros. Nice things to know. And I hope this has been a nice thing to know. And until next time, have fun. Peace.